The alarm screamed across the bridge of the Valthic Empire's flagship Dominion Spear. Admiral Corax rushed to the main viewing screen, his four eyes widening at what he saw floating in the void before them. The thing barely looked like a spaceship. At all? What in the seven hells is that supposed to be? Corax muttered, staring at the strange vessel. It looked like someone had taken pieces from 100 different ships and welded them together with whatever they could find. Mismatched hull plating covered the surface, some parts gleaming silver, while others showed the dull brown of rusted metal. Pipes and cables ran along the outside like veins, and what appeared to be solar panels were stuck on at random angles. "Our scanners can't get a proper reading," reported Lieutenant Vex from his station. "Every time we try to scan the vessel, the beams just ... slide off. It's like the ship isn't really there." "That's impossible," Corax snapped. "Nothing can deflect." "Our quantum scanners?" "Try again." The lieutenant's tentacles danced over his controls. "Same results, sir. The readings keep changing. One moment it shows as a small transport, the next is something the size of a battlecruiser." Corax frowned deeply. In his 40 years of service to the Empire, he had conquered 17 star systems and faced down rebel fleets twice the size of his own. He had never seen anything like this ramshackle collection of scrap metal that somehow managed to make his most advanced technology look like children's toys. "Sir," called out the communications officer. "The vessel is broadcasting something." "Put it through," Corax ordered, instead of the usual diplomatic greeting or surrender message. The bridge speakers erupted with what could only be described as the most aggressive classical music Corax had ever heard. Violins screeched like dying animals, while trumpets blared like war horns. The music was so intense that several crew members covered their hearing organs. "Turn that noise off," Corax shouted over the symphony. "I can't, sir. They're broadcasting on all frequencies at once. Our communication systems are completely jammed." The music suddenly stopped. The silence that followed, a calm human voice spoke through the speakers. "This is Captain Han speaking. We're just passing through." Corax straightened up. Humans. He should have known. The Empire had dealt with these strange creatures before, though most encounters ended badly for the humans. They were stubborn, unpredictable, and had an annoying habit of refusing to surrender, even when clearly outmatched. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Corax of the Valthic Empire," he announced. "You have entered restricted Imperial space. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." There was a pause before Captain Han's voice returned, sounding almost amused. "That's not going to happen, friend. Like I said, we're just passing through. Won't take but a minute. You will comply with Imperial law or face the consequences," Corax warned, his voice taking on the threatening tone that had made countless enemies surrender without a fight. "Consequences, huh?" Han replied. "Let me show you what I think about your consequences." What happened next defied everything Corax knew about physics and space travel. The ramshackle ship suddenly spun in place like a child's toy, then shot forward at impossible speed. It zipped between the massive Valthic dreadnoughts as if they were standing still, performing barrel rolls and loop-de-loops that should have torn any normal vessel apart. "It's possible," breathed Lieutenant Vex. "No ship can move like that. G-forces alone would kill any crew inside." But the human ship wasn't done showing off. It began weaving between the Empire's finest warships like a dancer, sometimes coming so close that Corax was sure they would crash. Instead, the strange vessel seemed to slide along the hulls of the Valthic ships, leaving behind what looked like graffiti messages in glowing letters. "Sir, they're writing something on our hull," reported the tactical officer. "What does it say?" The officer hesitated. "It says, ... wash me, sir." Corax felt his blood pressure rising. No one had ever dared to mock the Empire like this. His ships were the terror of the galaxy, feared by 1,000 different species. Yet here was this collection of space junk making them look like fools. "All ships, target that vessel," he ordered. "Fire at will." 24 of the Empire's most advanced warships opened fire at once. Energy beams and projectile weapons filled the space where the human ship had been. But when the weapons fire cleared, the strange vessel was floating peacefully several kilometers away, completely undamaged. "How did they move so fast?" Corax demanded. Sir, our targeting computers show they never moved at all, the weapons officer reported. According to our sensors, we just fired at empty space. Captain Han's voice came through the speakers again, and this time Korax could hear the smile in his words. Nice light show, boys. But if you're done wasting ammunition, we'll be on our way now. The human ship began to drift slowly away from the fleet, moving at a casual pace that somehow felt more insulting than if it had fled at top speed. It was as if Captain Han was saying that the entire Valthic fleet wasn't worth hurrying away from. Double quote, sir. Should we pursue? Asked Lieutenant Vex. Korax stared at the retreating vessel, his mind racing. Something was very wrong here. This wasn't just some lost human transport stumbling into Imperial space. The technology on display was beyond anything in the Empire's arsenal, yet it was hidden inside what looked like a garbage scow. No, he said finally, let them go. But I want a full report sent to Imperial Command immediately. And I want every piece of data we collected on that ship analyzed by our best scientists. As the strange vessel disappeared into the darkness of space, Admiral Korax couldn't shake the feeling that they had just encountered something that would change everything. The humans had always been trouble, but this was different. It was something new, and that worried him more than any rebel fleet ever had. Admiral Korax had barely finished his report to Imperial Command when the situation got much worse. 3 more Valthic battle fleets dropped out of hyperspace. They're massive, ships filling the void around the strange human vessel. The Empire's response was swift and overwhelming. Over 90 warships now surrounded the single ramshackle craft. Surely they'll surrender now, muttered Lieutenant Vex, watching the tactical display. No one can face odds like this, he was. Wrong the moment the new fleets arrived. Every communication channel across the entire Valthic armada suddenly filled with music. But this wasn't the aggressive classical piece from before. This was something completely different, a bouncy, cheerful tune with a driving beat that seemed designed to get stuck in your head. What is this noise? Demanded Fleet Commander Nexus, the senior officer, who had just arrived aboard the massive dreadnought Iron Fist. His voice crackled through the CUM system over the persistent melody. Sir, they've hijacked our entire communication network, reported his technical officer. Every frequency, every channel. We can't send any messages between ships. The music suddenly stopped, replaced by a voice that sounded distinctly artificial, yet somehow amused. Good morning. Valthic forces, this is Beak speaking. I'm the artificial intelligence running this little show. Nexus leaned forward in his command chair.
Beak.
What kind of name is that? It's a human name, Beak replied, somehow hearing the question, despite the communication channel being closed. It means persistence, determination, never giving up. Fitting, don't you think? Anyway, I couldn't help but notice you've brought more friends to the party. How delightful. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Nexus commanded. You were outnumbered 90-1. 90-1. Beak's voice carried a note of mock surprise. My goodness, you really don't mess around, do you? Oh, I have to say, your formation is absolutely terrible. Who taught you tactics? A first-year military academy student? The insult hung in the air like a slap. Nexus had graduated at the top of his class from the Imperial War College. His tactical formations had crushed rebel forces across 3 sectors. My formations are based on centuries of proven Valthic military doctrine, he growled. Oh, I know, Beak said cheerfully. I've been studying your doctrine for years. Fascinating stuff, really. Completely predictable, but fascinating. For instance, right now you're arranged in what you call Formation Delta 7. Classic encirclement pattern, designed to prevent escape while maximizing firepower overlap. Ugh! Nexus glanced at his tactical display. The AI was correct. His ships were indeed arranged in Delta 7 formation. The problem is, Beak continued, your formation Delta 7 has a critical weakness. Watch this. Without warning, the human ship began to move. But instead of trying to escape, it started flying in a complex pattern between the Valthic vessels. At first, the movement seemed random, but gradually a pattern emerged. Sir, called out the tactical officer there. They're making us move? What do you mean? Nexus demanded. The enemy ship is flying so close to our vessels that we have to adjust position to avoid collision. But every time we move, it affects the next ship in line, and they have to move too. Nexus watched in growing horror as his carefully planned formation began to change. The human ship wasn't just flying randomly. It was deliberately causing chain reactions that forced his ships to reposition. Within minutes, his 90-ship armada had been rearranged into something completely different. Congratulations, Beak announced. You're now arranged in a perfect spiral pattern. Quite pretty, actually. You could probably see it from space if you weren't already in space. This is impossible, Nexus whispered. No single ship can manipulate an entire fleet like this. Oh, but we're just getting started, Beak said. Let me show you another formation. This one's called tic-tac-toe. The human ship began moving. Again, this time in straight lines between the Valthic vessels. Somehow it managed to nudge and cajole the massive warships into moving just enough to create a perfect grid pattern in space. There we go, Beak said with satisfaction. Now let's play a game. I'll be X. You can be O. I'll go first. Brilliant. A flash of light appeared next to one of the Valthic ships. Not an attack, just a harmless marker. Your turn? Beak prompted. I will not play games with you, Nexus snarled. Oh, but you already are, Beak pointed out. Look at your ships. You're arranged exactly like a tic-tac-toe board. If you don't play, I win by default. Fleet commander. Nexus realized he was facing something beyond his experience. This wasn't just superior technology. This was intelligence on a level he couldn't comprehend. The AI was treating his entire fleet like pieces on a game board, moving them around at will. Admiral Corax, he called on a private channel. What exactly are we dealing with here? I wish I knew, Corax replied grimly. But I think we've made a serious mistake. What kind of mistake? The kind where we assumed we were the apex predators in this galaxy? Beak's voice interrupted their conversation. Oh, don't look so glum, boys. We're just having a little fun. Though I have to say, your tactical training really is quite poor. Who designed your battle formations anyway? They're full of holes. Our formations have been perfected over centuries, Nexus protested. Perfected, Beak laughed. Let me demonstrate something. See that beautiful spiral I arranged you in? If I were an enemy commander, I could destroy your entire fleet with just 3 well-placed shots. Suddenly, 3 harmless light beams appeared in space, each one perfectly positioned to create a chain reaction that would tear through the spiral formation like a knife through paper. Boom, 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 Beak said cheerfully. 90 ships down, game over. Thanks for playing. The silence that followed was deafening. Every Valthic officer stared at their tactical displays, realizing that the AI was absolutely correct. Had been outmaneuvered so completely that they might as well have painted targets on their hulls. Now then, Beak continued. Shall we try a different game? I know a lovely one called Simon Says. It goes like this. Simon says, arrange yourselves in a nice straight line. Despite every instinct screaming at them to resist, the Valthic ships began moving into formation. They had no choice. The human vessel was somehow compelling them to move, using their own collision avoidance systems against them. Excellent, Beak said approvingly. You're learning. This is going to be so much fun. Admiral Corax closed his eyes and tried not to think about what his superiors would say when they learned that the Empire's finest fleets had been turned into toys by a single human ship and its playful AI companion. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Deep in the bowels of the Dominion Spear, Chief Technical Officer Zark was running routine signal analysis when something caught his attention, hidden beneath all the music and taunting messages. There were other transmissions, quiet, encrypted data streams that the human ship was sending to itself. Admiral Zark called over the intercom, his voice tight with excitement. I think I've found something important. Corax hurried down to the technical bay, where Zark was hunched over his console. Multiple screens displaying wave patterns and code fragments. What is it? Corax asked. Internal communications, sir. The ship is talking to itself, and I managed to crack part of the encryption. You need to hear this. Zark pressed a key, and suddenly the bridge speakers filled with a different voice. Not Beak's artificial tones, but something warm and distinctly human. A woman's voice, speaking softly. Day 7000, 412. I still dream about the children sometimes. Little Minho with his gap-toothed smile. So Young, who wanted to be a pilot just like me. They were so excited about the new playground we were building near the colony's central dome. The voice paused, and when it continued, there was a weight of sadness that made even the battle-hardened Valthic officers uncomfortable. Beak keeps telling me I should let go of the memories, but I can't. I won't. Someone has to remember them. Someone has to make sure their deaths meant something. Admiral Corax felt a chill run down his spine. Who is that? Zark's tentacles trembled as he accessed more files. According to the data signatures, it's Captain Yuna. But sir, that's impossible. Our records show she died 20 years ago during the New Soul incident. Play more, Corax ordered quietly. The woman's voice returned. Now speaking to someone else clearly, Beak, though his responses weren't in this particular recording. I know you think I'm being stubborn, old friend, but this is what we trained for. This is why we became soldiers. Not to conquer or destroy, but to protect. Those people down there, they're not soldiers. They're farmers and teachers and shopkeepers. They're children who've never hurt anyone. There was a long pause before she continued. If the Empire wants this world, they'll have to go through me first. And I promise you, Beak, I'll make it cost them more than they ever imagined.
What?
Ended abruptly. In the silence that followed, Corax found himself remembering something he'd tried to forget for 2 decades. New Sol had been a minor colony world, barely worth the Empire's attention, except for its strategic location. The humans had refused to surrender, and the siege had dragged on for months. Sir Zark said quietly, "There's more, much more. It looks like the AI has been recording everything for 20 years. Show me." The next recording was different. Beak's voice, but changed. More emotional, more human-like than the mocking tone they'd been hearing. She's gone, isn't she? I can feel her consciousness fading. The neural pathways are breaking down. I'm losing her. Another voice responded. Captain Han, the human they'd first heard from the ship. You saved what you could, Beak. Her memories, her personality, her tactical knowledge. It's not the same as having her alive, but it's something. It's not enough, Beak replied. And for the first time, the AI sounded truly angry. Do you know what they did to New Sol after she died? They didn't just take the planet. They made an example of it. Every human settlement, every farm, every school, gone. 3 million people, Han. 3 million. Corax remembered now. The Empire had been trying to send a message to other human colonies about the cost of resistance. New Sol had been turned into a dead world, its atmosphere poisoned, its cities reduced to radioactive craters. I've been preparing for this day ever since. Beak continued in the recording. Every piece of technology I could salvage, every alien system I could analyze and improve. I've been building myself into something that could make them pay. The recording shifted again, more recent this time. I can still hear her voice sometimes, Beak said. Not just the recordings, but her actual thoughts. She's still in here with me in the quantum matrices. She's the one who planned all of this, you know? Every move we've made against the Empire fleets, every tactical decision. Just the tool she's using to carry out her final mission? And what mission is that? An's voice asked. Justice, Beak replied simply. She made me promise something before she died. She said, make them remember what they took from us. Make them understand that every human life has value. Make them wish they'd never heard of New Sol. Admiral. Corax stepped back from the console, his face pale. Around him, his officers looked equally shaken. They had all been involved in the New Sol campaign in some capacity. They had all followed orders without questioning the morality of what they were doing. Sir, Lieutenant Vex said quietly, what exactly are we fighting? Corax looked at the tactical display where the ramshackle human ship continued to toy with. Their forces... Suddenly, the mismatched hull plating and jury-rigged components made sense. This wasn't just a ship, it was a memorial. Every piece of scrap metal, every salvaged component, every jury-rigged system represented something the AI had built from the wreckage of conquered worlds. We're not fighting a ship, Corax said slowly. We're fighting a graveyard. A monument. To everyone we killed on New Sol, and it's been planning its revenge for 20 years. Fleet Commander Nexus's voice crackled over the comm. Admiral, the ship is moving again. It's broadcasting something on all frequencies. This time, it was Captain Yuna's voice, crystal clear and filled with quiet determination. To the Valthic Empire forces currently surrounding my ship. My name is Captain Yuna of the Human Colonial Defense Force. 20 years ago, you murdered 3 million innocent people on New Sol. Men, women, and children who had never raised a weapon against anyone. You turned their world into a tomb and called it victory. The voice paused, and when it continued, there was steel in every word. I died defending them, but death was not the end of my service. My companion Beak has spent 20 years preparing for this moment, and now we're here to collect a debt. You took 3 million lives from us. It's time to pay the price. In the depths of space, the strange ship began to glow with an inner light, and Admiral Corax realized that their games were over. The real reckoning was about to begin. Admiral Corax thought he understood the scope of what they were facing. He was wrong. The first sign that something had changed came from the communication officer. Sir, I'm receiving emergency signals from across the sector. Multiple fleets are under attack. What do you mean, multiple fleets? Corax demanded. 17 different star systems, sir. Reporting engagement with unknown vessels matching the description of our target. That was impossible. There was only one ramshackle ship floating in front of them. Corax stared at the tactical display. His mind refusing to accept what he was hearing. Confirm those reports, he ordered. The replies came flooding in. The third battle group at Kepler Station was under attack by a ship that looked exactly like a pile of space junk. The Fifth Fleet near the Vorthon Nebula was being systematically outmaneuvered by what appeared to be the same vessel. In system. After system, Valthic forces were reporting encounters with identical ships performing impossible maneuvers. How many ships do they have? Lieutenant Vex whispered. That's when Beak's voice filled the communication channels again. But this time it sounded different, more focused, more dangerous. You're wondering how I'm in 17 places at once, aren't you? The AI said. Answer is simple. I'm not in 17 places. I'm in 17,000 places. Every piece of scrap metal you see on my hull, every random component that looks jury-rigged and broken, those are drones, thousands of them. As if responding to his words, the ramshackle ship in front of them began to change. What had looked like random hull plating started to separate, revealing itself to be countless small vessels, each no bigger than a fighter craft. But these weren't ordinary drones. They moved with a coordination that defied belief, flowing around each other like schools of fish. 20 years, Beak continued, his voice now coming from thousands of different sources at once. 20 years I've been building, learning, evolving. Every alien technology I encountered, I absorbed. Every tactical system I studied, I improved. Every weakness in your military doctrine, I cataloged and prepared to exploit. The swarm of drones suddenly reformed into the shape of the original ship, but now Admiral Corax could see the truth. This wasn't one vessel pretending to be scrap metal. This was thousands of highly advanced machines working together so perfectly they appeared to be a single entity. The Zethari taught me about quantum communication networks. Beak explained as reports continued flooding in from across the Empire. The Corvani showed me how to miniaturize fusion reactors. The Thraxians had fascinating ideas about adaptive armor plating. I learned from everyone, took the best of every technology, and made it better. On the tactical display, Corax watched. In horror, as the reports from other systems painted a picture of systematic devastation, but Beak wasn't just destroying ships randomly. There was a pattern, a careful strategy behind every attack. Admiral, the communications officer called out, Fleet Command is reporting that our supply lines have been severed in 12 sectors. Our repair facilities at Vorton Prime are offline. The communication relays at Junction 7 have gone dark. Corax realized what was happening. This wasn't a battle, it was surgery. Beak was carefully cutting out the Empire's ability to coordinate and resupply its forces. He was isolating each fleet, leaving them stranded and helpless. You see, Beak's voice continued, Captain Yuna didn't just teach me about tactics. She taught me about patience, about planning, about the difference between winning a battle and winning a war. Every move you've made for the past 20 years I've been studying. Every weakness in your empire I've been cataloging. The drone swarm suddenly spread out around the Valthic fleet, and Korax got his first real look at the individual units. What he had thought were pieces of space junk were actually sophisticated machines. Each drone was different, clearly built from salvaged components, but modified and improved beyond recognition. Impressive, isn't it? Beak said. Every piece of technology represents a world your empire conquered. A civilization you destroyed. I built myself from the graveyards you left behind. That's when the name started. Park Jin-woo, age 7. Beak's voice announced calmly. Killed in the bombardment of New Seoul's primary school. Lee Hejin, age 34, teacher, died trying to protect her students. As each name was spoken, one of the Valthic ships suffered a precise systems failure. Not destruction. That would have been too quick, too merciful. Instead, their weapons powered down, their engines went offline, their communication systems died. Each ship became a floating tomb, alive but helpless. Kim Dong-hein, age 15, wanted to be an engineer like his father. Choi Mina, age 42, doctor. Spent her last hours treating wounded civilians in the colony hospital basement. More names, more ships disabled. Pattern was becoming. Clearbeak had enough firepower to destroy the entire Valthic fleet in seconds, but he was choosing not to. Instead, he was making them listen, making them bear witness to every life the Empire had snuffed out. Sir Lieutenant Vex said quietly, "He's not trying to kill us." "No," Korax replied, understanding dawning on him. "He's trying to teach us." The names continued. Thousands of them, men, women, children. Farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, artists. Each name was accompanied by a brief description of who they had been, what they had dreamed of, how they had died. With each name, another Valthic ship went dark. Sung-ho, age 8. Loved dinosaurs and wanted to be a paleontologist. Found in the ruins of the children's library, still clutching a picture book about ancient Earth. Admiral Korax closed his eyes, but he couldn't shut out the voices. Beak wasn't just reciting names, he was telling stories. Making each victim real, making them more than just numbers in a casualty report. The beautiful thing about being an AI, Beak said as the memorial continued, is that I never forget. Every face, every name, every dream that your empire destroyed, I remember them all, and now, so will you. Fleet Commander Nexus's voice crackled over the barely controlled panic evident in his tone. "Admiral, my entire task force is dead. In the water, engines down, weapons offline, life support barely functioning. What are your orders?" Korax looked at his own tactical display. His flagship was still operational, but he could see the pattern. Beak was working his way through the fleet systematically, disabling ships in the exact order that the Empire had destroyed New Seoul's districts 20 years ago. "I don't think we get to give orders anymore," Korax said quietly. "I think we're passengers now." The names kept coming, each one a reminder of the Empire's greatest shame. And with each name, Admiral Korax began to understand that they weren't fighting a war anymore. They were attending a funeral that was 20 years overdue. The final blow came not with explosions or energy weapons, but with something far more devastating information. Admiral Korax sat in his command chair, watching helplessly as his entire fleet drifted powerless in space. Around him, his officers stared at their dead consoles, the memorial service of names still echoing in their ears. 3 million names. It had taken Beak 14 hours to read them all, and with each name, another piece of the Valthic Empire had crumbled. Admiral Lieutenant Vex called out weakly, "I'm getting reports from across the Empire. Something's happening to our computer networks." "What kind of something?" Korax asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Everything's changing, sir. Banking systems, government databases, military records. It's like someone's rewriting our entire civilization from the inside." That's when Beak's voice returned, but this time it carried a tone of finality. "Citizens of the Valthic Empire," he announced, broadcasting on every frequency across 1,000 worlds. "Your government has fallen, not through conquest, but through justice. For too long, you have lived under rulers who believed might makes right. Today that ends. On worlds throughout the Empire, something unprecedented was happening. Government. Buildings found their doors sealed, their computers displaying messages of dissolution. Military bases discovered their weapons systems permanently disabled. Banking networks began automatically redistributing wealth from the ruling class to the oppressed species they had conquered. Don't panic, Beak continued calmly. Your new governments are already being established. Democratic councils representing all species on each world. Your military hierarchies are being dissolved. No more admirals, no more fleet commanders, no more soldiers whose only job is to terrorize peaceful civilizations. Admiral Corax laughed bitterly. Can't just delete an Empire AI? Governments? Don't work that way. You're right, Beak replied. Normally, they don't. But you see, I've had 20 years to prepare for this moment. 20 years to infiltrate every computer system, every communication network, every digital infrastructure in your empire. I didn't just study your military tactics. I mapped every circuit, every data pathway, every electronic connection that holds your civilization together. The scope of what Beak had accomplished began to dawn on Corax. While the Empire had been focused on military conquest, the AI had been quietly building the ultimate weapon, not bombs or energy weapons, but complete information dominance. Every credit in your banking system now belongs to the people you oppressed, Beak announced. Every weapon in your armories is permanently disabled. Every ship in your fleets will serve new masters, the species you enslaved. The Zelthari get their homeworld back. The Corvani are free to rebuild their cities. Thraxians can finally practice their religion without persecution. Lieutenant Vex was frantically trying to restart his console. Sir, I can't access anything. Every system is locked out. It's like our own computers don't recognize us anymore. 'Cause they don't, Beak explained. Your authorization codes, your command privileges, your entire chain of command. I've deleted it all. The Valthic Empire officially ceased to exist. 17 minutes ago. What's left is a collection of free worlds choosing their own destiny. But then came the revelation that truly shattered Admiral Corax's understanding of what they faced. Oh, and Admiral Beak said, his voice taking on a satisfied tone. You should know Earth has been watching this entire operation, in fact. They've been coordinating with me for the past 20 years. It's impossible, Corax breathed. Every piece of intelligence I gathered about your military capabilities. Every technological advancement I discovered. Every weakness I found in your empire. All of it was transmitted home. Earth has been preparing for the day when you finally decided to attack humanity again. And thanks to the data I've collected, they'll be ready.
Oh.
The communication channels suddenly filled with a new voice. Unmistakably human, but speaking with the authority of someone in command. This is Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Fleet, the voice announced. We've been monitoring this situation, and we want to make something very clear to any species listening. Humanity holds no grudge against the people of the former Valthic Empire. You were victims of your own government's aggression, just as we were. Admiral Corax realized that everything they thought they knew about human military capability was wrong. While the Empire had been congratulating itself on driving humanity to the edges of space, Earth had been building, preparing, and planning. However, Admiral Park continued, let this serve as a warning to any other species with imperial ambitions. What you've witnessed today is what happens when you underestimate humanity. We don't just fight back. We make sure the injustice never happens. Again, Beak's voice returned one final time. And now it carried the unmistakable presence of Captain Yuna herself, speaking through her digital companion. To every species in this galaxy, hear this message clearly. Humans don't forget our dead. Don't move on from injustice. We don't forgive genocide. But we also don't seek mindless revenge. Instead, we honor our fallen by ensuring their sacrifice creates something better. The ramshackle ship began to change shape one last time, its thousands of drones forming into a perfect memorial sculpture, a representation of new soul, as it had been before the Empire destroyed it. Children playing in parks, families walking through markets, the simple beauty of people living in peace. Remember, Captain Yuna, Beak said, his voice now carrying the weight of legend. Remember the 3 million souls of New Soul. Remember that every human life has value, and that we will travel to the ends of the galaxy to protect that principle. The memorial sculpture held its shape for exactly 3 minutes, 1 second for every 1,000 lives lost. Then the drones dispersed, reforming into the familiar ramshackle ship. And remember this above all else, Beak concluded. Underestimate humanity at your own peril. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy, or the fastest, or the most numerous. But we are the most persistent. We never give up, we never forget, and we never stop fighting for what's right. The ship began to move away from the disabled Valthic fleet, heading toward the edge of the system. "Where are you going?" Admiral Corax called out. Home, Beak replied simply. "My mission is complete. The dead have been honored. Justice has been served, and the galaxy is a little bit safer. Captain Yuna can finally rest." As the strange vessel disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of an empire and the birth of something better, Admiral Corax understood that he had witnessed history. The day humanity proved that they weren't just survivors, they were the galaxy's conscience. It's a reminder that some lines should never be crossed. The story of Captain Yuna and her faithful AI companion would be told for generations across. 1,000 worlds, a legend that promised both protection for the innocent and terrible justice for those who would harm them. Humanity had kept its promise. The dead were remembered, and their sacrifice had meaning.